It's proposed to receive any further announcements at the annual general meeting which follows this meeting. So we move now to item 4.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. 14.3 twice, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Sorry, 14.12.
Just going to wait for some advice on this. Any point of order, of course, is on the council procedure rule or point of law. So if you'd like to explain what the
Yeah. Items 10C and 15D, Mr. Mayor. First of all, to suspend the guillotine, and secondly, to allow members that wish to speak on this important issue more than the allocated 5 minutes.
just taking some advice. So if that's the case, we can take a vote on that separately. Have you a seconder?
I second.
As seconded. Without any discussion, we can take a vote on lifting the guillotine at 11:30 p.m. All those in favour of lifting the guillotine at 11:30 p.m? Okay. Those against, please show. That is lost. Now, the second point, Councillor Baggott, is to change the procedure rule to allow...
Mr. Mayor, to allow members to have more than 5 minutes to speak on the item.
So that means as long as they like.
Yes.
Is that just on this item or on every item on the agenda?
Just on this item.
On this item.
I second.
Seconded by Councillor Dadd. Okay? So what we're voting on is allowing each member, on item 4 this is, allowing any member to talk as long as they like on any item, on this particular item. No, in excess of 5 minutes. All those in favour, please show. Okay. All those against, please show. That is lost.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. The procedural rule is 3 extraordinary meeting.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to raise a point of order that having a discourse review this morning, you advised me that the Chief Executive called this meeting. I've raised that point with the Council, Solicitor, and I've also discussed it with yourself this evening, that and having discussed with you this morning that you haven't called this meeting, I raised it with the Council, and they came back and told me that actually you, in consultation with the monitoring officer, was that effect, agreed to the meeting. I've had a conversation with you prior to coming into the meeting to raise that point, because there seems to be an inconsistency with what was said this morning. And you said that the monitoring officer asked you to call the meeting, and I raised this point. One, the Chief Executive will call a meeting in addition to ordinary meeting when a request is made for one of the following: the council has resolved. You, the Mayor, have not asked one. You told me this morning. The monitoring officer, the financial officer, is pursuant to their duties. I don't see how that request has been made, and there's no written record. If the solicitor of the council was making a request, I would expect to see a written record, and there isn't one, and that's inconsistent with what you told me this morning. Or a requisition of 5 members of the council is signed, setting out the reasons. So I'm saying that this meeting is against the Constitution, as I have articulated.
Thank you, Councillor Dadd. The Council resolved at its meeting held on the 15th of December 2016, the Council ceased operating the leader and cabinet form of governance and began to operate a committee system form of governance with effect from the annual Council meeting on the 25th of May. Advice of leading Council was subsequently sought regarding the matter. Further to their advice, the Monitor Officer, in pursuance of their duties, advised the Mayor and Chief Executive, as well as group leaders, at a meeting in February, that a further resolution of Council will be needed to give formal effect to the change prior to the annual Council meeting on the 25th of May, when the change was due to come into effect, and that due to the timescales at an extraordinary Council meeting will need to be convened. I subsequently agreed that an extraordinary Council meeting be convened, and the Chief Executive was requested to convene a meeting. When I said to you this morning, it was the Chief Executive, he convened the meeting, not requested the meeting. He convened the meeting on the date in effect. No, sit down, please, Councillor Dadds. I've made the ruling, I've answered the point of order, and my view is final. Okay? Councillor Hodge.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move a motion, and before I start speaking to it, I'd like it distributed, please. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Mayor, point of order, please.
I'm sure you're going to make it, Councillor Dadds.
Yes, I am. It's procedural 14, motions without notice. Please can we have an explanation of what the motion is, and does it contravene the notice without motion without notice? Because I've not seen any notice,
No.
A motion with notice, so I want to double check and have a moment, if we can, maybe a short adjournment to see whether this contravenes the procedure rules.
Slight amendment to my recommendation, and it's been circulated now. I'm sure you will have plenty of time to read it while Councillor Hodge is speaking.
No, sorry, it wasn't an amendment to the motion. Councillor says motion, it actually says motion put forward, and I'm saying to put forward a motion under procedural rule 13, it has to be done in notice and in time. Emergency motions need to be made before 12 noon on the day of the meeting. A motion without notice, which this is, has to be in accordance with Article 4, Article 14. And I'm saying, could I have a short adjournment to consider whether this motion is without notice valid?
I'm satisfied it meets the requirements. Councillor Hodge.
Mr. Mayor. As already been discussed, on the 15th of December 2016, I moved a motion that primarily set out to resolve that this council cease operating the leader and cabinet form of governance and start to operate a committee system form of governance effective from annual council meeting in 2017. Following a robust debate around a cabinet versus committee system of governance, that motion was carried by a majority. You are now being asked to give consideration to the report before you by the Chief Executive that updates members on the details of a committee system of governance. These proposals have emerged following discussions between the Chief Executive and group leaders. Most group leaders took the opportunity to contribute towards the emerging proposals and communicate progress back to their respective groups for wider discussion and debate. An all-member briefing was held on the 9th of May 2017 on the proposals for those wishing to get along. Cabinet also took the opportunity to discuss the proposals at its meeting on Tuesday this week. There has, therefore, Mr. Mayor, been ample opportunity for members to look at and discuss the proposals for a committee system of governance as presented. The Constitution itself underpins these proposals. The proposals include 7 ordinary committees. In addition, the Council has established a Joint Standards Committee with local councils to discharge the authority's standards function. Each committee will be politically, proportionately represented. The committee system is in fact a coalition of all political parties. It's an opportunity for a fresh start at Basildon. Let's embrace it and start delivering policies that the majority of residents across the borough want to see. In terms of the financial implications, £15,000 has been incurred to date on external legal advice. An estimated £10,000 has been put into the budget as a provision and set aside for member and officer training. The Members' Allowance Scheme, which is the next item on the agenda tonight, but on face value there has been a reduction of £45,561 on the overall Members' Allowances budget. So not only is the committee system more open, transparent and democratic, it's most cost effective too. The report sets out the resolutions on page 4, which would need to be made if Council is minded to give effect to the resolutions made on the 15th of December 2016. There are some alternative options. These are set out on page 9. I have to confess that option 2 was a given at our December meeting, and I trust members will not use this to relive the arguments. That debate has already taken place and a vote was taken. This is now about the detailed proposals. In closing, I would like to thank the Chief Executive and our officers who have acted diligently and professionally in bringing this report forward. Needless to say, against a background of competing priorities and other complexities, I'd like to extend our sincere thanks. That wraps it up. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
A point of order,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor. It's under Article 4, the paragraph 4, Article 14, motions without notice. What we have is a motion here that I assume is being moved under Article of subsection Roman numeral 6 to receive reports or adopt recommendations of committees or officers or any other resolutions from those. So it's my understanding that this is a motion without notice, but that would mean if it's going to adopt in effect what the Chief Executive is suggesting or recommending or resolving in the report, that is allowed without notice. This is not that because, for example, paragraph 3 seeks to completely change a position and is not reflective of the recommendation or resolution by the officer. Therefore, it is out of order. Furthermore, the public are entitled to have notice in advance of any motions, and there are procedural rules. Those procedural rules, motions with notice, emergency motions, and therefore this one fails to be a motion without notice because of the reason I've just said. The Chief Executive has set out resolution. There can be a motion without notice to that resolution, and someone has to second that. That is within, if you look, under procedural rules, number 12, it says presentations of report to council. Under Roman numeral 4, it says recommendations contained within reports will be moved by a member at the time he presents the report, and a seconder will be required. That is, when a presentation report under Roman numeral I says a report received by the Chief Executive may be given to council from time to time. Therefore, there cannot be a motion without notice. It can only be a motion by a seconder of that resolution offered by the Chief Executive. That is the correct order, because otherwise, if this motion, as it is, not without notice, has not been publicly displayed or given advance notice of, nor have we.
Councillor Dads, one moment. I've already ruled on it once, so I'll rule again. It is in order. I will formally second what's sort of been moved, and Councillor Turner will speak next.
That's a bias. Here we go. You've already a bias.
Councillor Turner.
Well, Mr Mayor, what a shameful display of democracy here tonight. It starts off with the whole process, and it's quite laughable that Councillor Linda Allport-Hodge thanks the officers and the Chief Executive when there's been nothing but bullying and intimidation of officers to get the trees high. You only have to look at the report to know that, because the report, with respect, is shoddy. It's half-baked, it's understated, and that's why the costs are not in here yet. Now, hands up who expects the cost to increase. Here we all. Because I tell you why they're going to increase. Is because no other council in the country has been able to do what we're proposing here tonight without an increase in costs. And I'll give you an example. The last time we ran administration, the opposition coalition demanded an extra scrutiny committee. We asked for a scrutiny committee to put back in here, only fair. That's been ruled out. We can't have a scrutiny committee. And this is a fair and open, transparent way
Councillor
of
Turner,
doing
can you address your remarks to the Chair rather than speaking to your
Mr
benches,
Mayor, I'm
please?
talking to you.
No,
I don't have to look at you.
Just one moment, please. If you look at the Council procedural rules,
I don't have to look at you.
it does say you address your
I'm
remarks.
addressing it through you, Mr Mayor. I'm looking at my party.
Well,
I
you
can
address
do
the
that.
Chair.
You don't have jurisdiction for me to look at you.
Well, you follow the Council's rules.
I'm doing that, Mr Mayor.
Otherwise,
I'm doing it. I'm doing it. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank
Calm.
you, Mr Mayor. Thank you. Don't look. The whole process, you and your opposition, coalition partners, railroading this through. And it is a railroad. That is all it is. The report that's been put together is so underwhelming. That, and let me go through it. Fair and open transparency. The comments we made, no more decisions behind closed doors. How laughable is that? In a cabinet system, you sit in open session and you give those decisions that are recorded for public consumption. Here we have a coalition of desperate people, an unholy alliance. An unholy alliance. Nobody has ideology. The Wickford Independents, and this is laughable, free from party politics. Yet they're in the mire, they're in the thick of it. You, Mr Mayor, that is. You go through this and you only have to start looking. First of all, the distribution of places. Now, who remembers somebody getting their knickers in a twist because they were half of the sent out? That was Councillor Linda Allport-Hodge. Conservatives are being underrun by 0.8, and we're giving that to Labour. Well, that's nearly one seat in my group. Yet they can't even get that right. It's even worse when you go to subcommittees, because the democracy is even thinner there. What this opposition, this coalition are planning to do is to run subcommittees, 3 of them, where the Conservatives, who occupy 45% of the council, are being diluted to 40%. Yet those subcommittees will still carry all the weight and all the responsibility that the main committee has. That's how this open, fair, transparency and democracy is working under the coalition. That is how they're going to run the council. And as for costs, I mean, yeah, quite clearly, Councillor Ward said it. They don't care about costs. Costs will escalate, there's no doubt about that. Costs will escalate. And I'm pathetic in saying about costs. They don't care, not worried. I'll tell you what is pathetic, Councillor Ward. Your record of attendance at events, 10 in the whole of the
He
municipal
hasn't
year.
been well.
Yeah. It hasn't been well run here.
Councillor Taylor.
That is hitting. Sorry, Mayor. Sorry.
10. What's wrong? 10. Yeah,
Sorry,
it seems
Mr Mayor.
seems well enough
Rule
right.
of debate 15D, not speaking to the agenda.
Carry on, Councillor Turner. I think he's speaking. But can I just ask people to calm down and don't make remarks about other people because it lowers the tone of the meeting. I'm sure you don't intend to do that, Councillor Turner.
I might have a go. So the costs are not a problem. So we'll check all the costs through the year. This is not in the public interest. No way is it in the public interest. When a coalition from railroad through such a shoddy piece of work, where's the cost effort coming on the £6.5 million? Who's going to be heading up that? Do we even care? No, they don't. They don't care at anything. This is all about stopping the Conservatives. It's not about facing the public and giving them good quality services. That, Mr Mayor, is what this is all about. Thank you.
Councillor Barnes. Please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I've chosen to give my maiden speech tonight because I think it's important that we point out what's actually going on at this council meeting. I'm not going to get bogged down in the legal niceties of the committee system. I'll leave that to those who are better versed than me. But I think it's crucial to point out that this change in governance proposed tonight would not be happening were it not for it to be the only method by which the two parties to my left and my right can seize control of this council. Let's not kid ourselves. If UKIP and Labour could run this council via a cabinet system, they would do it in a heartbeat. They know it's more responsive, it costs less, and it delivers far better for residents. What stops them is simple. The Labour group can't go into coalition with the far right. They would be suspended by their own NEC. So instead, they've conspired to go into coalition via the back door. I've heard a lot of nonsense spouted about democracy, that this is somehow restoring democracy to the council. And yet the way this change was brought about could not be any less democratic if you tried. The original motion put all the decision-making power regarding the new structure in the hands of party leaders alone. Conveniently, 4 of the 5 party leaders were in favour of the change. 19 councillors on these benches, nearly half the council's make-up, were only represented by 20% of the committee. How, exactly, is that democratic? What this is, Mr Mayor, I'll call it what it is, it's a stitch-up of the very worst kind. 4 councillors conspiring together behind closed doors to take control of this council and bypass as much of the democratic process, the checks and balances, as they possibly can. So they can grab all the decision-making positions on this council, on which none of them have anything approaching a majority. I understand that Councillor Callaghan is to be the new leader of this council. How exactly is that a victory for democracy? How is electing the leader of a group with only 9 councillors democratic? He has as many councillors as Tim Farron has MPs. If Tim Farron was declared Prime Minister, would we consider that to be a stunning victory for our democratic system? Or would we think that a grubby deal had been done behind the scenes to prop up a shambolic administration? I don't want to talk to the party leaders barring my own. You've done your deal and you've sorted yourself out. Instead, through you, Mr Mayor, I'd like to talk to my fellow backbenchers across all parties. Because I cannot believe that some of you are not as uncomfortable with this scam as I am. Labour members, are you seriously telling me you are comfortable sharing power with this lot opposite? Have you not listened to the same speeches I have for the last 2 years? All the great ideas you have, what you hope to achieve, do you honestly think that will survive first contact in coalition with a party whose views are so utterly opposed to your own? Your leader isn't interested in what's best for residents, he's doing this for his CV. The second and the safe northern seat appears he'll be off, we'll never hear from him again. You'll be left to pick up the pieces. I know many of you really do care about the people you represent. Don't let them down by going into a coalition with a party leader who has proved time and again she is unfit for office. To the UKIP members, I know many of you care passionately about your wards, but I can assure you that Councillor Callaghan doesn't care about you. He doesn't even have any councillors up for election in 2018, but you do. And given the recent election results, do you really think you'll be thanked at the ballot box for delivering a Labour administration? Yeah. In my time on this council, I've seen two councillors defy your party leadership. One of them, Councillor Smith, has just been re-elected to the County Council as an independent with a thumping majority. And the other is now our mayor. Have you ever wondered if you might be backing the wrong horse? The independents on the council have the luxury of making up their own minds. I understand that you may have felt at times the Conservatives have been heavy-handed. I do get that. But don't lumber the council with a committee system for 5 years and a leader whose party has no councillors in Wickford or Billericay just to give us a bloody nose. Let's pull back from the brink. It's not too late to reconsider and work together to produce an administration that works for all residents and takes account of all groups. Mr Mayor, let's not force the residents of this borough to endure their very own coalition of chaos. Thank you.
Councillor Davis.
I have a couple of points. In relation to the proposed constitution, I don't see that document, it's 300 pages, in front of anyone, unless they've got it on their laptop. Well, one, okay. But all right, two. But what I'm saying is that there aren't one for every councillor. Now, this is such an important issue. It has not been discussed and debated. When we've had working groups on the Constitution, we've had multiple meetings, sometimes to discuss just the council procedures, and there's lots of debate and discussion. This is 300 pages. For example, 2.8 removes a formal mechanism for a member of the public to complain via a councillor. It's completely removed. 4.6.4, if there's non-compliance, the officer now can consider whether it's appropriate to bring it to the committee, whereas before it was mandatory to bring it to a cabinet member. In relation to new contracts and commitments long term, in the past it would have had to go to a cabinet member. It now only if it's appropriate by the financial officer. And there are many examples. We are moving away now from a member-led council to a council-led, a council officer-led council. There are so many powers that are now being transferred to the chief executive and his staff. He is, in all intents and purposes, should be called the leader. I see the motion here that says that the chairman and vice chairman of the Policy and Resources Committee shall not be used the title leader of the council, but will resume the responsibilities. Can I take from this that the leader now will be called Father Mahendra because he was in that role? Because clearly someone is not going to be called leader of the council. Who is going to be called leader of the council? Is it Father Mahendra, who does a sterling job as an officer? Fine, but he is not politically elected. He's not a politician. So what I say is that this is new. This is a motion without notice. This is a motion that has not been properly discussed on air. The wording of it, for example, the chairman and vice chairman of the Policy and Resources Committee shall not use. It's just, yet again, it's another way that they couldn't get together a motion. I don't know why Parliament Hendra sees it fit to actually write the motion or suggest the word motion for the opposition parties to bring about a change. It should be for them. My opinion is that the chief executive, being neutral, should have all options open to the council to properly debate. Is the actual change transparent, effective, efficient? Is it more beneficial to the council as a whole? I believe not. It's not because I want to retain or keep a responsibility as a cabinet member. I, a long time ago, a public record, invited Councillor Callahan to actually take all the committee seats. We would support Labour in taking all the council seats under the committee seats at first. In a separate conversation that I had many times different members saying, if you want to come together, by all means, you have the numbers. I can't change that. You come together collectively, and I respect you for that because that is your choice. When you come together, but take the leader and cabinet model, because I know that it is an effective way of running local government and governance. It's transparent. We are changing the financial procedures of this council without a further proper debate and discussion. We are removing the full functions of scrutiny. We're removing the participation of residents and tenants. We are changing the way we work fundamentally. I say that all those changes have not been done in the normal course of probity and exercising caution as we move along. So, Mr. Mayor, I would say that this is a failure in local government, the way we are working. I would encourage the opposition members to get together and keep the cabinet leader model and run the council in that way. The very last 10 seconds is that it is a mission, I think, of officers, particularly the Chief Financial Officer, Section 151 officer, to actually properly cost this so that council understands its financial risk and what the differences are between the existing model and the new proposed one, so we can have a proper, meaningful debate on actually how much is it going to cost each year for 5 years.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Councillor Baggott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I must say over the years I've served on a number of committees with a number of the different parties. And there are members of those parties that I genuinely thought, yeah, might not have the same ideology, but they genuinely want to actually do right for their community, but do right for their community within that particular ideology. So we weren't necessarily going to see eye to eye, but there was a genuine belief there that they were going to do the best. And I wonder how many of those now are actually just feeling really, really uncomfortable, because what we're seeing here is an ethics thing as well. We ask the question, what happens when you discard your ethics and your ideology purely to take power for power's sake? We have two political parties that are finished nationally, coming together to take power for the sake of it. And this is a coalition, no matter what they might say. They couldn't produce an order paper and vote on it together without being a coalition. They couldn't actually choose chairman of committees and vote on it together without being a coalition. So it will be interesting to see how the Labour National Executive react to that. I hope they react to it in the same way as they did in Scotland. And this issue of removing the name leader, and this just shows names of naivety, I think, with the motion. Because when you're looking at businesses wanting to invest in a borough, when you're looking at people wanting to engage in a borough, they actually look to somebody they're going to speak to be told this is what's going to happen, or we can make decisions. They actually look for a leader. What are they going to get? They're going to get a chairman of a committee. That actually sends the message that, in fact, there isn't anybody in charge, there isn't anybody in control, there isn't anybody making decisions, and actually, if it looks like a goose, walks like a goose, and quacks like a goose, it's probably a goose, and that's what you're going to have. And in effect, the railroad officers to rush through a report without due process, without thinking it through, without costing it, without thinking of the consequences. And I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, when I say opposition, this also includes yourself, because you are one of the leaders. You were a defendant on that, thank you for that, but you have been involved in everything that's led up to this. So, we've got rid of scrutiny. This is something that Labour for years and years and years saying they should be chairman of. The minute they actually have the opportunity to grasp power, what's the first thing that goes? The ability to scrutinise the decisions that are made. And I'm shocked to you, Mr. Mayor, because you were an advocate of scrutiny, and when we served together on scrutiny, you always purportedly felt that scrutiny had a role to play. Unless, of course, when it's coming to get power, then, oh, it's not that important after all. If I'm getting power, let's shove scrutiny to one side. Very disappointing. So, nobody to hold decision-making to account, nobody giving critical oversight, nobody facilitating policy development. And the idea that the committees scrutinise themselves is just derisory. The idea that when you're making a decision, you can actually Yeah, I know scrutiny we're doing that thing. We've done a bloody good job, fellas. Let's actually go down the pub and have a pint. It's ludicrous that people making the decision are able to think that they can scrutinise themselves. What's the next thing that they've done, apart from getting rid of transparency for decisions? Well, marginalise the tenants for a start. When actually raised about the tenant compact, almost a look of surprise. Now, Labour used to be the champions of the tenant. Labour used to be the ones that were always fighting for tenant rights, for the fact that tenants should be involved in council decisions. And yet here we have a major decision by the council, not only of tenants not being consulted in breach of the tenant compact, but actually, when you have to look at all the nitty-gritty of this, tenants are well marginalised with regard to the decisions being made. No consultation with tenants, treating them with contempt. No consultation with the public, treating them with contempt. Anybody that's actually listening to this transcript or is aware of what's going on here should know who puts their hand up for this system and ensure they're never elected in this borough again, because all they've done is trash democracy. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now, my hand and the hand of my mother could stop this committee system dead in its track. And there was one thing I've asked for: Dunton to be saved. That's it. My constituents, they talk about democracy, Mr. Chairman. Dry Street, the scrutiny meeting about the market relocation. Councillor Dadds, I mean, can you remember how many seconds that meeting lasted? How many seconds? I mean, the only person who could compete with that race in time would be Paddy Ashdown and his secretary. And they talk about democracy. I have no intention, Mr. Mayor, of going back to my constituents like Neville Chamberlain and say I have the assurance that Dunton is saved in our time. No. No, no, no. Dunton must be saved. Dry Street is being destroyed. How much of this end of the borough must be destroyed? If there has to be a coalition, starting at Langdon, Dunton, Langdon Hills, Lee Chapel North, Lee Chapel South, Fange, Friends, Gilgrove, Boswell East and West, Pitsea, Bowers, Gifford, Wickford, to stop a criminal, or near enough criminal gang, known as the Billericay Mafia by some. I would call them the Billericay Defence League, are only interested in destroying areas such as Dry Street, Dunton, so they and their little friends on the Billericay Town Council can live in comfort. They've had the chance to stop this, and they will not listen to me or my constituents and that of the ballot box. And therefore, Mr. Mayor, I beg to move the questions put and get this behind us.
You can't move the question because you've just spoken. And it's got to be someone who hasn't spoken in the debate. I call Councillor Callaghan next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I congratulate Councillor Barnes on his maiden speech tonight? Shame he chose to waste it, but he went for it nonetheless, because he seems to have forgotten that it's a hung council. It's almost like we're supposed to just sit here and roll over, that the Tories are not in a majority anymore, and that they can't just do what they want. As always with Councillor Bagger, you know, he's got a bright shirt and tie combo, but that was pretty dim, because when you look at this, I mean, this idea that we all look to the leader, I like Phil Turner, I'm not going to lie to you, but the idea that I look to him for some kind of spiritual guidance on my daily life, and that people around the borough are all looking to the leader of Basildon Council and, you know, bowing in deference is complete and utter nonsense. This issue of the Constitution, again, is quite interesting, because there is absolutely nothing that says that we had to bring amendments to a constitution here tonight. We could have moved into a committee system without that coming to council, but we've gone above and beyond, because we have brought the constitution and the amended constitution here tonight. And so again, that doesn't seem to make sense. He talked about it now becoming an officer-led council. I mean, that is quite funny, because if we are all seriously supposed to think that the officers are not helping Councillor Sargent make decisions, then, I mean, come on, that is just absolute nonsense. It happens on a daily and weekly basis. Then they talk about the process, and they moan about consultation. I can tell you, some of us have been doing our own little focus group consultation on this. You lot don't want to know the answers, because you don't come out of it particularly well, because I'm telling you, people want this. They see it as a better, open, fairer way of doing business. There is nothing that was put forward tonight by any of the Conservative members that was about the legality of this. It's all total nonsense. I mean, Councillor Dadge, great guy, great speech. Utter nonsense. They just had no argument. There was nothing in it that was remotely sensible. So I just don't see that we're going to have anything there. This idea of cost, it's fascinating.
Councillor Callaghan, you're going to address me as well, please.
I'll look in your eyes.
No, you're going to have to.
I do apologise. This idea of cost is particularly interesting to me because we've had, again, a number of contributions and they talk about costs going up, and we've had the fake news media that is the Basildon Echo writing nonsense about this last week. I have to ask, what is the cost, Councillor Turner? What is the figure? Put the figure on it. Because all we hear constantly is, it's going to cost more money. It's going to cost more money. What is it? The fact that you can't, so you had a whole speech and you couldn't put a cost on it. It's just fake news, rhetoric, nonsense, Donald Trump style, and people are bored of it. And they talk about this being railroad issues. Like 6 months. This has been going on for 6 months. We have had a number of meetings with the Chief Executive, the group leaders, and with our groups, as the amendment that we voted on, the resolution we voted on in December, calling us to do. Where was Councillor Turner? Why did he not bother coming to all of the meetings? Why did he not come and put forward all of his group's ideas? If they had these concerns, they have had ample opportunities over the last 6 months to come forward. It is just grandstanding. And, Councillor Barr's talking about Tim Farron. I mean, if anyone's a bit like Tim Farron, my friend, it's Councillor Barnes, in the sense that he seems to be against democracy. Because I'm pretty sure that what he's after is some kind of a second referendum on this. He wants some kind of a second vote on whether or not we move to a committee system. We've already decided. We had a vote. You lost. We move on. Now we come again. Some of us think this meeting's open to interpretation, Mr. Mayor. I'm not even sure, personally, that we needed this second meeting here tonight, but we're having it. We'll vote on it again. There's your second referendum, Tim. And I have to say, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to end it there because I think this is nonsense. This is a hung council.
I think you should, because Tim isn't present.
Well, it must be his double. But, Mr. Mayor, I am going to end it, and I am going to say, I, for one, am very optimistic about what's to come tonight.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. Point of order.
Three people stood up at once. Point of order.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Procedural 14, part 9. Hello? Yep.
Yes.
Yep, part 9. Let the question now be put.
Yeah.
Is there a second? Someone has spoken on can't second. Seconded by Councillor Brown. Seconded by Councillor Brown. On the understanding that I've got 4 more speakers, not going to go repeating the same arguments. I'll carry on and then have the question be put after those 4 speakers. Councillor Blake.
Thank you, Mayor, for that. Just to address a couple of issues that we raised. The 9th of May meeting that everyone refers to, everyone was invited to. Yeah, they were. And I know that 2 groups, not yourself, I haven't said, basically decided, well, basically whipped not to attend, because not one of them attended, because the leaders had already seen it. Now, I'd like to know how many of the other members who didn't attend that meeting have actually looked through the Constitution in detail. Bear in mind, we only had the one to look through, in detail. So that's very important. And so that was the first opportunity that the members got to hear it first-hand from officers. I'm sorry, you can't shake your head. I would like clarification on that. That was the first opportunity that members were given by officers to attend the meeting. Fact. And that is what happened. And that was the first time they got there. And we turned up in our droves with all of us. And we put some challenging questions. I think about 14 out of the 19 actually attended, but maybe even higher than that, very large percentage. And we put some very challenging questions to the officers, as they've done back to us as well. So That was the first time, the 9th of May, when members were actually given, other than the leaders, of which one decided he wasn't going to take part at all in the leaders' debate, I understand. And that was the first time that members were involved. So they've not had an awful lot of time on that. Someone was mentioned, I think it's Councillor Callaghan again, mentioned of what cost. Do you know what? I actually think £150,000 is a drop in the ocean. It sounds a lot of money. But what cost? I'll give you what cost. £30 million for Basildon College. Do you honestly think that you two, as an administration, which is what you are, would have agreed to that? Because it would have meant Dry Street being developed, as you know. And bear in mind, you all said you was going to stop that. Did you? No. Could you? No. So there's £30 million. There's £30 million already. £30 million already would have cost us. £38 million for the Sporting Village. The Sporting Village would not have gone ahead if you two had been in coalition as you are now. It wouldn't have gone ahead. You know that, and we know that. I think Linda Gordon actually had the guts to actually apologise and admit she got that one wrong. And I respect her for doing so. So already we're at £68 million. That's the cost already. You then got things like the Memorial Park. Bear in mind, Chairman, because it's your group that have also put in this coalition that it is. I said, Whitson Memorial Park, I said, about hundreds of thousands spent over the last couple of years. I said, and absolutely, there's no doubt about that. You know that, and I know that. Do you honestly think that's going to continue? Because I remember quite rightly, I think it was a couple of Labour members who are no longer with us. They were talking about the downtrodden estates of Pitsea, which I live in, and how many millions are we going to spend on that? Well, that's where the money now is going to go, which I live in, so I've got absolutely no problem with some of that being said, so I've got no problem with that. But it's going to be to the detriment to the rest of the borough. And that would also include the areas where the UKIP had their members. This would be led by somebody who has already admitted that they are trying to they're going to get their hands on money and spend it where they want for a short period of time they can. So that's another one that's, by the way, that's going to happen. So when actually, people are going to say to us that we're just doing it sour grapes because we're going to lose our cabinet positions. And that's what's been said. And we've heard, no, I know you're not saying you, that has been said, so don't say it has been said. Yeah. We have said, take the cabinet positions. Yeah. We have said to you, have them. Have whatever cabinet positions you want. Take it. It's just a better form of democracy, of getting things done, getting confidence. Businesses coming into this borough knowing that they've got the confidence, rather than having to speak to somebody who might talk to them and say, yeah, it's not a bad idea, and they think, great, we've got it. And then they go to the committee, and they find out the committee typically put it. People will walk away, and their businesses walk away in their droves, purely and simply on the basis they have not got the confidence. They have not got the confidence. And that's what's important when you've got a borough like and the way it's grown over the years, under a Conservative administration. That's the facts. You know, and the one other point, I just want to raise this, and I've always got on reasonably well with Kerry, but I have to say, to do a deal with the devil, which is his words, not mine. Yeah. Actually, I have to tell you, Margaret Thatcher, who he says he was a Thatcherite, and I used to believe him, she would turn in her grave if she knew that he had made a deal with Labour so that he would get a position so that later on tonight he would probably
that's an insult, Mr.
And my opinion, I'm in charge of my opinion, Maggie Thatcher, that's all I'm saying, Maggie Thatcher would turn in her grave knowing what he has done to the Conservative Party.
Thank you, Councillor Blake. Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Just so that people are aware, I've got Councillor Sargent, Councillor Strada, Councillor Hillier, and then Councillor Walcott to wind up.
I just want to say that I've got no confidence in the system that we have before us. It's been demonstrated that no due process has been taken, and it was absolutely obvious at Cabinet when every member of Cabinet did not have a copy of the Constitution in front of them, and I understand that there have been no changes to it, so how can we have confidence when we, as a council, not just our group, but all of us, don't even get to see or to a hard copy where we can go through and make changes to that constitution.
We've got the bin consultation.
And not only that, The meetings have been held. The meetings have been held with group leaders only. That's put our leader, Phil Turner, at a total disadvantage with 19 members. You've expected him to take guidance from 2 people that have got 2 groups with 2 people and others with half the amount that Councillor Turner has. And why would you want to do that? And so it's no wonder that it was just us that turned up to the meeting, including our leader, to listen to the nonsense that was put before us and try to put some credibility to it by asking for scrutiny committees, and you've just wiped them right out. And as has been said before, you wanted them. I'll go on now about the changes in allowances. I attended a meeting last week to appoint the independent members of the remuneration panel. And that's right and proper, that's what they're there for. We never agree on our allowances, but we've had Councillor Paul Hodge here this evening, when she put forward her motion, say that all the money's going to go down. That's not for us. I mean, yes, it will change if it's a committee system, but it's a matter for the independents. It's not a matter for us, Councillor Paul Hodge. So you've got that wrong before you've even got in the chair.
Councillor Paul Hodge, please.
With regard to the decision making, yes, I made a number of decisions as Cabinet member, and they were very hard decisions, but some of them have been good decisions. But let me sit back with my group and see the decisions, so you can all be full of rhetoric, wax lyrical about how you are going to act and how you are going to perform as wonderful, and we're all going to work together. And let's take the training. Yes, the training. £10,000 training. How many of you have attended training that's been put on by this council in the past year? Yeah, but how much of it? You might have done 1 or 2, but not all of it. So now, but training on what's important to us. Not training on a new committee system, spending £10,000, and the fact that our residents know nothing of it. Very few of them know anything whatsoever about it. Shame on this council this evening.
Councillor Schrader.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I may emphasise some points. I'd like to tread some new ground. We'll see. I mean, I will pick up on one point that Councillor Sargent just made, which is one of the defective elements, I think, of this system we're proposing to bring in is that it lacks transparency and accountability. I mean, to be absolutely honest, it's frankly just not fit for a modern local authority in the 21st century. Now, I know it might be counterintuitive of me of all people, to say that. You know, given that I found out recently I'm referred to as the councillor for the 19th century. I think it's kind of a popular one, I don't know. But the traditional system of
Councillor
local government...
Schrader, you mustn't make rude remarks about yourself, either.
Obviously, you know, the traditional system that went back to the Victorian era was all very well and good for them. But, I mean, there was a reason that the Labour government phased out. I want to remind the party over there that it was the Labour Party that phased this out.
So this is policy
specifically because government by committee is a byword for inefficient governance. It's axiomatic of what is not good about making sure you can't make a decision by committee. It lacks transparency and accountability, and the electors should know and should be able to hold someone to account for political decisions. And under the strong leader model, at the end of the day, the buck stops with Councillor Turner. Who's accountable when all the decisions are taken by a faceless committee? You've got everyone just sitting around going, oh, well, I was just one vote among many. Don't look at me, Gov. Collective decision-making blurs political differences between parties. And some people think that's a good thing. Some people say, oh, you know, it produces more consensus. But consensus is just a fudge. It just avoids debate by pretending that matters have already been settled. And as I agree with her on so many things, the late Lady Thatcher once described consensus as something in which no one believes, but to which no one objects. That kind of thinking won't produce the dynamism and innovation these times require. We face tremendous challenges as a local authority. And what are we doing? What is the opposition sort of bent its will towards and invested all its time and energy in? Tinkering with the Constitution. That's going to be the great UKIP legacy on this council, is that they mucked around with the Constitution. They've treated this council's governance arrangements like Keith Moon treats hotel rooms. I mean, the committee system is basically their Lincoln Continental, and they're just driving it headlong into the swimming pool. It completely trashes this council's ability to make strategic decisions. It's been railroaded through with a lack of scrutiny, which if the Conservative group had tried to put something through the way this is being put through, you'd all have been absolutely hopping. Can you imagine the rancour we'd have got if we tried to put something like this through? No scrutiny, no due diligence, no costings, hasn't been through overview scrutiny. Where's the report? Cabinet was a complete afterthought. And this is, the all-member briefing, as Councillor Baggott pointed out, was only attended by members of this group. And yourself, Mr Moore, there was you there, but the UKIP and Labour group were nowhere to be seen. The fact is, this has got nothing to do with the governance of this council. This is all to do with spite. This is scorched earth policy. UKIP know the writing's on the wall for them. Even Labour can do arithmetic on their numbers. They know they won't even be able to wistfully fantasise about taking administration for years. So this is all about just making the council ungovernable for us. And we're going to be foisted with this system for 5 years, and as has already been pointed out, not a single member of the public is it's not even on their radar. They're not even aware it's happening. And it will be the residents that suffer, Mr Mayor, at the end of the day. I mean, you can put this through, but it will be the residents that suffer. They will suffer when you fail to deliver the regeneration, when you fail to deliver the savings that we need desperately, when you fail to secure the investment that this borough needs and that this borough can get, because we're an up-and-coming borough, but as Councillor Blake pointed out, they're going to run a mile. We're already becoming a notorious shambles, trust me. The ad hoc changes to your constitution with no scrutiny. People have seen that this is happening. And, I feel sorry for the residents when this council is going to the wall because, the council tax has gone up because Labour have brought back welfare catering or some other boondoggle, or UKIP have mucked up the local plan and we've lost control of planning.
Councillor Schrader, can you please?
Well, in summary, Mr Mayor, we will make sure that people know who was responsible.
I'm sure you will. Most people, yes, I'm sure the few people who read your blog will know. Councillor Hillier, I apologise. He normally jumps in first in the evening.
Mr Mayor, really. Can I just say, before you tell me off, I am allowed to respond to points made by other members in my comments, and that I will do. And the first one is this, that when the 19th century councillor comes to council wearing a frock coat, there might be two of us, because I'll join him. But I think that the pocket watch is a good idea. There's a number of issues here that I want to raise. And the real issue with this system is the lack of efficient decision making. And I will give you one example of this, and this is something that has not been raised by any other member. In the current world where local authorities are being required to work together, there is an appetite for more and more inter-authority agreements. And as a cabinet member, you can attend meetings of those agreements, and you can make a decision which is binding upon the council. If we return to a committee system, that authority disappears, and any decision that is required by the local authorities in agreement has to come back to be discussed at committee back in this council. And I know when the Waste IAA was first formed, and Castle Point was operating a committee system, they had the devil's own job trying to make a decision on it because they couldn't agree to it, but from the member who was there to represent them. I also just want to pick up on a point that Councillor Blake made, because he made comments about the cost. And Mr. Mayor, there is going to be a cost that nobody can put a figure on at this moment because we don't know. And that is the cost to this council of delayed decision making. And that could be thousands of pounds. We just don't know. But we will find out as time goes on. There was comment, I think Councillor Sargent made a comment about the Cabinet. We've all got the minutes of the Cabinet meeting in front of us on our tables. We all know that the Cabinet, in discussion on this on Tuesday evening, dissociated themselves from this report and this process. And I think the Cabinet made a wise decision in doing that. I also just want to pick up on a couple of points that Councillor Smith made. And first of all, like him, I totally object to the idea that Dunton and development in Dunton is in the local plan. But we have professional officers who are bringing forward the local plan, who are having to deal with all the evidence that is required to bring that forward. And I know that Councillor Smith has had this as an issue for some time, and I've spoken to him on a number of occasions. And if and when the local plan comes forward, I will stand up in this chamber and argue against Dunton being developed. What I will have difficulty doing is saying that I will saddle this council without a local plan. Because those of us who sit on the planning committee know full well that we have policies that are out of date and we can be ridden over by anybody who cares to, and without a local plan it's the developer's charter. The other thing that Councillor Smith made comment on was Dry Street. And Mr. Mayor, it was myself, as a cabinet member responsible for planning some years ago, who brought forward to this council a proposal that Dry Street be returned to Green Belt. And for whatever reason, that hasn't happened. And I have to say, Mr. Mayor, that the decision to develop Dry Street has gone through all sorts of legal challenges. And whilst the development of Barn Hall, which is on a similar plot of land, designated for housing, overspill housing, once Barn Hall went, the writing was on the wall that we would be difficult to resist the development on Dry Street. Now, I regret that, but that is the fact. Just a couple more points, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Callaghan, in his comments, said that the people want this system. If they want it, why has there been no public consultation that has been presented to Council on that particular point? So I don't believe that Councillor Callaghan can speak with authority when he says that the people want this. And my final point, Mr. Mayor, is this. It is my understanding that the camel is a horse designed by committee.
Thank you, Councillor Hillier. Now, Councillor Hawthorne-Hodge to wind up briefly.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too like Councillor Turner. He's a really good guy, and he has worked extremely hard.
Don't read that.
As leader of this council. But I do find that he sometimes wistfully fantasises. And he most certainly is wistfully fantasising over the costs. I'm sorry, I did read somewhere in one of the really accurate newspapers that report on our political situation that the costs were going to be 1.5 million. And I was going to make a joke, about, Councillor Turner being the Diane Abbott of Basildon. So the costs are in the report. They are what they are. I don't foresee any huge increase in the cost as a result of the implementation of the committee system. And I have to completely disagree with you, Councillor Turner, on it being a shoddy piece of work. Given the background to its preparation, I've already commended the Chief Executive and officers on that piece of work. Councillor Barnes, you said that the Tories have been heavy-handed. I have to agree with you. Absolutely have to agree with you. And you made a plea for us to work together. Well, I can't, you know, Councillor Turner's previously stood up and said he doesn't know what UKIP stands for. Well, I have now, this is the third time I've stood up and told you that this is a hung council and it's incumbent upon us all to work together. And I haven't just extended that olive branch to, you know, we have extended that olive branch to every single party in this room. And there's only one party that failed to take it up. Right? In terms of your concerns, Councillor Barnes, about the coalition, I have to remind you that within a cabinet system, there can be a coalition formed, and of course our national government formed a coalition with the Lib Dems. But here we have 7 cabinet members, 6 of which represent Billericay, and Councillor Turner has already alluded to that. So I don't support your views that basically we're going to seize control. What we're doing is we are sharing control and taking it away from the 6 Billericay Tories. Councillor Dadds, you said that Basic's not been discussed and debated. Well, you must have missed the opening parts of my speech where I outlined the stages at which discussions and debates have taken place. The committee system with chairs and vice chairs will be taking decisions. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the committee system, it does mean that all representatives, that's Tories, Labour, UKIP, Independents, whoever they are, will have an opportunity on that service committee to ask questions and to make decisions in an open and transparent way. Still on Councillor Dadds, because I did get slightly annoyed, to be honest. Yes, especially when you went on about the fact that we've removed scrutiny. I remember being elected quite early on, and I'd spent weeks and weeks trying to unravel.
Councillor Alcohol, you may have something going with Councillor Dadds, but can you please
Yeah,
speak through the chair?
I'm responding to his comments, Councillor Harrison. He said that we have removed scrutiny. What I'm trying to say is he actually treated that scrutiny committee like a kangaroo court when we was dealing with Dry Street. So I am rather surprised that he has concerns about the removal of scrutiny, which in effect has not been removed, Mr Mayor. It is incorporated within the committees.
I listened to you for 2 hours. Councillor Davis, please. 2 hours.
Councillor Baggott, again, you're saying that we didn't care enough. Well, you clearly haven't cared enough to read the document. Scrutiny is in there. Councillor Blake, your members might not know what's been done with regards to the development of these proposals, but that's down to your leaders' leadership styles. I can only speak for my group, but all of my group are au fait with where we are now with these proposals. Anyway, there were so many comments, Mr Mayor, I'll leave it at that, and let's put it to the vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now vote on the motion or the recommendation, recommendation which has been circulated. In accordance with section 9Q KC.
Mr Mayor, sorry. We are voting on a motion.
Can you sit down please, Councillor Dadds, unless you've got a point of order, which you don't appear to have.
I do.
In accordance with section 9KC of the Local Government Act 2000...
Mr Mayor, I have a point of order.
Which one?
It's Article 1 that sets out that the powers of the Council will be exercised in accordance with law and the Constitution. The motion that was put forward, which I argued was a motion without notice, which you did not agree, and I lost that argument. You have just summarised something completely different. Now, what is before us is a motion without notice, and I don't mind having a vote on that. But this is not a recommendation for Byron Hendricks because it isn't his recommendation. It's not an amended motion, it is a motion. And that's what the header is. It says, motion moved by Councillor Allport Hodge. And that is what we should be voting on.
It's a proposal from the Chief Executive as a result of the resolution of the Council on 15th of December last year. I have ruled, Councillor Dadds, I've ruled, and we will now move to the vote. And the motion is, in accordance with Section 9KC of the Local Government Act 2000, as amended by the Localism Act 2011, the Council resolves to cease operating a leader and cabinet form of governance and to operate a committee system form of governance with effect from the annual Council meeting on the 25th of May 2017. The committee system form of governance is to be operated as set out in the report, and the detailed provisions in the proposed constitution as set out in enclosure number 2 be approved, subject to 3 below. The chairman and vice chairman of the Policy and Resources Committee shall not use the title of leader of the council and deputy leader of the council respectively, but the chairman of the Policy and Resources Committee will assume the responsibilities of the leader of the council in the committee system as set out in the report, and the vice chairman will assist and deputise as necessary. Quite clear? All those in favour, please show. Okay. All those against, please show. That is carried. We will now move to the independent remuneration panel. Consideration